We all remember the famous scene in Jerry Maguire where there's the show me the money scene. Well, this goes for your marketing as well. People want to see if you're talking about claims, if you're talking about possibilities and potentials. They want to see some form of figures. They want to see case studies. They want to see stories. They might want to see numbers. Numbers can absolutely help, whether they're numbers that show them a possibility or numbers that show them a reality that you've created. Doesn't really matter. Numbers just help to tell a story as well. And so, I have an email series that I'm working on for the tail end of the signature workshop training that Tad and I are going to be offering. And so this is the shared document that Tad and I are working in. And one of the emails is going to go out, I think on this 10th of September or something. Yeah, right here. So this is the email here. As I've mentioned a bunch of times, I've grown my email list by over 5,000 people in a little over a year and a half now with the signature workshop that I've been touring with. I've done, I think 33, 34 versions of it. And I just keep trying to improve it. And so I wanted to create a little stat. Unfortunately, these are not the exact numbers of how I've grown mine, but I wanted to show a realistic chart that help people to see what would be possible for them. And so I created 30 different workshops and that would grow your email list by 3,000 participants. So 30 times, that's an average of 100 participants per workshop. And if you created a $500 flagship training, which if you were in it earlier this year, I taught the create your flagship training, which was essentially helping everybody create a $500 to $1,000 offering that would be 4 weeks long. So if you created that and at a 2% conversion rate for those 3,000 people, that'd be 64 people over the course of the year. Maybe you're offering that flagship training twice a year or 4 times a year. That'd be $32,000 of revenue with a 2% conversion rate. And let's just say you created a $2,000 one-on-one coaching package and you had a 1% conversion rate, which is also realistic. That would be 27 participants signing up for $56,000 in revenue. Total revenue from those two offerings with 30 deliveries of your signature workshop would be about $88,000. And for me, I've figured it out that I spend about 2 hours per signature workshop. It takes me an hour to deliver, and there's about 30 minutes of prep or 30 minutes of admin stuff that I got to do to get each one delivered. So for 60 hours of work, $88,000 of potential revenue. I can definitely say I've made more than $88,000 from my signature workshop. So this is what the chart will look like that people will be getting in this email, just to give everybody a visual of what those numbers look like. So with the 3,000 total participants, and these are all made up numbers. Unfortunately, we weren't tracking. We were just having all of our workshops under the same tag for the first 20 or so. So I had to kind of just make these numbers up based on averages. And, some of them we've had tons of people. There's been signature workshops that all have 3 different partners promote, and we'll get over 500 people sign up. The first one we did with Tad had 1,100 people show up. So it really does vary, but 3,000 is definitely realistic because you're going to have some audiences that are large that get a big turnout and some audiences that are small. And if you take those calculations into effect, you could create a spreadsheet and you could play around with numbers just to see if it's worthwhile. And if you happen to hire somebody for, say, $25 an hour to run your signature workshop stuff, and they're working, say, 32 hours a month, average of 8 hours a week, you're spending $800 to $1,000 a month to generate this kind of revenue. So hopefully you can see how your signature workshop, if you go all in on that, you put all your chips on the table, it can work positively in your favor, and why hiring is probably a really great idea if you've got a little bit of money set aside that you can invest into somebody to do that role. So that's one way to show numbers or to show people the story about what it is that you're selling them. The other would be, and I've shown this plenty of time, but there's a bunch of new folks here. Oh, wrong URL. Here it is. So the other kind would be doing a case study, much like what we do on our partnership page here, where you tell the story. So like here's one for the School Mythopoetics that we launched a little over a year ago. So they have a video trailer here. You can click the case study. This was all just made in Canva about who the client is, what their challenges were when they came to us, what roles Magic Media played in their project, what the results were for their launch that we did with them, and a little bit about the founder and some reflections on what we learned from the process. So a case study like this doesn't take long. I have 6 that are on my to-do list that I have to make that we haven't caught up on, but we have a bunch of them. And this is typically anytime somebody's interested in working with Magic Media, I make sure that they read all our case studies so they can understand our creative process, how we work with people, what results we've provided. And then they can see themselves in those stories and say, yeah, I want to be that story right there. So those are just a few ways. You got to be a good storyteller. You need to share the facts, share the information, or at least paint a picture of the possibilities, which is what that chart does that I just shared there with all of you. And that can help ease people's uncertainties about working with you and going on the adventure up the mountain with wherever you're taking them. So hopefully that gives you some ideas. Think about what are some ways that you can tell better stories visually so that people can actually see the story, whether it's creating a spreadsheet like the one that I just did for the signature workshop, or it's creating a visual representation of a client case study that you've done.